What's going on, everybody? If you watched that last episode where I just rambled on about random shit and a scenario putting Steve in an impossible situation, you probably want to watch this episode to kind of get an understanding of why we did that.
Yeah, so let's just recap. So our last episode was we were going to talk about headcanons in the diversity that we did a long time ago where our recording happened. And to a sense where we tried covering it, but I think the last time we covered it, we didn't give it as much justice.
Yeah.
Or we kind of got sidetracked.
Yeah.
And as you know, that tends to happen a lot because that happened last episode too.
Yeah. That's what last episode was. It was supposed to be headcanons, and then I went too in depth on a headcanon.
Yeah, it was a thing of like pulling the beautiful things about us and at the same time the worst things about us and turning that into an episode in terms of like you creating this spontaneous scenario,
right?
Me thinking too deeply on it and making like real decisions based on it.
Right. I have like a rock, and Steve is like, I wonder what fossils inside there, and I'm like, it's a rock.
So, yeah, but what kind of rock? Is it sedentary or igneous?
Exactly.
Well, you find it on the shore of an ocean. Okay, is there a volcano nearby, or
now you?
That's pretty much how it works.
Yep, that's our friendship in a nutshell.
A little bit.
Steve is this man who's just like, I see all the angles, and I'm the one who walks off the cliff. You remember when I did that? Were you there that day? I was drunk and I had a coconut, remember? And I was all like, oh, I gotta take a pee. So we were at this is a little sidetrack. We were over at Seascape. Yeah, Seascape.
I think I do remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't a cliff, it was just like a hill of sand.
It was a super steep slope.
I remember that. Well, that was when we were doing the that was the wood burning night, right? Where they had
the giant pyre and everything.
Yeah. They did their own little Burning Man, their mini Burning Man on the beach.
I don't remember this little.
We were walking back from there, and he was like, "Oh, a coconut!" He had one in his hand. And he either missed a step or some shit, and he just started tumbling.
Yeah. So we went. It was during that phase of my life where I was like really big in the coconuts because I learned how to crack them open.
You brought it with you, right?
Yeah, I bought it from Safeway, and then I brought it with us, and then I had to go to the bathroom, but it was super dark. So it was like this canopy of trees, and then ground, right, and then right where the table ends, it was just black. So I was like, oh, it's probably just dark. So I took a step, and then I just tumbled into like a patch of poison oak, and it was just bad. Yeah, I just fell. My coconut cracked open. I tried to save the water. I couldn't do it. It was so bad. Had to climb up there, and then I had to go to the doctor because the bumps started showing up, and they were like big bumps, and I was like, "What's going on?" They were like, "Did you land in a patch of poison oak recently?" And I was like, "Probably, yeah." But that's basically how it is. I would walk off a cliff, but Steve would be the one that's like, "No, shine your flashlight."
Yeah.
And see how that goes.
You'd be the guy to jump off the fucking. You'd be a guy who like cliff diving.
Yeah.
Who would just go.
Right.
You wouldn't even look down and realize that there's rocks underneath you.
Like, there's a system to this. You see this patch of area, that's what you're aiming for. And I would just be the one that's like running.
As that's being explained, you already like leapt off the cliff,
right?
Off the corner. Yeah.
I'm like,
a little bit.
Who are my genius twin sisters? You guys?
I don't know. But like,
no, you don't get that liberty yet.
They don't finish explaining how the shit works, and he's already out testing it.
That's me.
Yeah, you don't get that. You don't get that privilege yet. You don't get the genius siblings.
Yeah.
Who just create shit for you.
I would love it. It would make life simple.
No, it wouldn't. That's the reason why we can't do it for you. Because you'd be worse than Johnny Test.
What do you mean? I'd just come straight back to you and be like, I did the thing and it didn't work out. Make it stop.
Exactly.
That's what he does.
I know. I'm too old to be like, okay, let's fix it. I'd be like, I would hit you.
Don't let me into your secret lab. Or at least label the things in your secret lab.
How much is that going to stop you though? Let's be real.
You know,
if I had a sign that said keep out, would you really keep out?
I wouldn't keep out.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't touch anything.
No.
No, I
was
wouldn't.
gonna say, I don't know if I can believe that either.
If it looked expensive.
If you broke one rule, I feel like you're just on a streak of rule breaking.
No, I don't touch expensive things. I break too many things.
I feel like if you broke the first rule of not keeping out, you'd break the second rule of being like, I said I wouldn't touch, but dude, what is
Okay,
this?
it depends. What's inside your secret lab? And then let's get into your headcanon. Just tell me one thing inside your secret lab. I'll tell you if I'd touch it or not.
I can't.
Why
I
not?
can't tell you because that's too much. It's too much information.
You don't know. You can't think of anything off the top of your head.
It's too much information.
All right, and then what's your headcanon? I wouldn't touch it, by the way. I would respect his boundaries.
Okay. Let's say it's an item that can grant you whatever you want without repercussion.
Without repercussion, it's labeled.
It's a genie in the bottle without any like tricks or.
Then I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't. Because I don't know how many wishes. I would feel like such a dick if you came back and you're all like, all right, finally ready to grant this wish and fix world hunger or some bullshit. And I was like, hey, check it out. I got a jetpack.
It's like it would be like a.
I wouldn't touch it.
I would say like a Mr. Meeseeks box. Wouldn't touch it. Infinite amount of like Meeseeks.
Definitely would never touch a Mr.
You would be
Meeseeks
Jerry
box.
with that shit, wouldn't you?
I would. I would definitely be that because I would ask them to help me with something and they would never be able to help me with it. And it'd just be shit. And be like, let me ask another Mr. Meeseeks. So yeah, I wouldn't touch it. The things I would touch were things that I know he could easily rebuild if I broke.
You know, it's interesting, and we'll get into headcanons, but I just thought about this. The Mr. Meeseeks, the challenges that they found really easy were the ones that were subjective. Right? Make me a fuller woman.
Yeah.
How do you know that's the case? It's got to be a subjective thing.
Right.
Same with like make me popular in high school. The ones that were hard were the ones where you had to actually calculate numbers.
Yeah.
Right? That were actually like, damn, like he ain't gonna get. He's not gonna take 2 strokes off his golf game.
Right? Like that was the thing where it was like genuine betterment for yourself physically and in the physical world. No chance in hell.
Yeah.
Mentally though,
They had it pat.
Yeah, they had it down pat. So what's this headcanon you want to tell me about?
So let's recap to yours, right? Because you talked about Mr. Three Heads, triple head. To this day, I still can't stop laughing.
It's not a good name, I know, but like I can't be like Rook Thor, the calamity and blessing. Like I can't be like that. I'm not gonna name him that. I named him Superhead. They call me Superhead. Why? I got 3 heads, bro.
So let me recap yours if I can remember correctly. You had this world built where you were essentially God.
Right.
But you had your 4 advisors that you had to go to. You had your 4 advisors that you had to go to.
3 owners.
Yes, your 3 owners who had to agree upon your usage of certain powers.
Now,
at the same time, you can grant people powers as well.
So the way it works is like I am God.
Uh-huh.
But some things, so I can do whatever I want. But if my owners disagree with it, right, they can be like us 3.
So
together,
they just have veto power.
They have veto power, and they have the power to command me to do things. So it's like if you just left me alone to do whatever the fuck I wanted, I wouldn't help people or destroy people. I'd sit at home, watch my cartoons, and enjoy my day, right, like a normal person. But with as Stan Lee once said, right? With great power comes great responsibility, which I don't have. So I have 3 people to handle that responsibility for me. They're the ones that are like, Kendall, this is what we need from you because you can do it. So we say you have to do it, and then I do it. Or if I get angry and I'm all like, all right, Apple needs to go, right? They can show up and be like, no, Apple doesn't need to go. You need a new iPhone. Something like that. So that's what their thing is.
And then you had your 4 horsemen, right? And they were the people you bestowed crazy power to.
Right. Yeah.
To protect the peace, protect your owners, and
take me down in case shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Right. Like Batman, he was all like, he had everybody's weakness and like a way to take them down, like in that file.
Yeah, Justice League. I think they did a movie on it. It was called Doom. Yeah. Where they accessed his like files to take down the Justice League.
Yeah. And at the end of it, they're all like, How do we take what was your file? And he was like, it's called the Justice League.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that was my thing. It's basically
That's a fucking flex, but at the same time, he's just like, I could take you bitches out. Any
no, like
day of the week.
his whole superpower.
It was almost like a backhanded compliment in a sense, where he was like, "Well, if you made a file for everybody, what's yours?" Like, you guys, I guess. Like
I mean, like
I just defeated y'all, but like at the same time, we could say it's you guys. Why not?
right. I feel like his thing is like at the end of the day, it's like my thing is I don't make the mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Like when shit hits the fan, I'm the one getting your bitches out because Superman over here is just gonna fly over, kick ass, destroy city after city after city, and who pays for all that? This guy. So my plan is I don't fuck up. That's what he basically said.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But basically my whole headcanon is we live in a world where, right, it's like today's society, except you have beings that actually have great power, but those beings being chosen aren't being chosen because of random chance or because something inside of them genuinely makes them worthy of the power. It's because one dude got insanely lucky, right? Became God. And he was like, oh fuck, this is not for me. So he went to his closest friends who he knows are good people, and he gave them the power to be responsible for the planet.
You literally are just like, someone just gave me the power to take care of this world. I don't want it all.
No, like they do that in DC and Marvel all the time, right? Fucking not Scott. What's the fuck? Jean Grey and Scott's son. What's his name? You know what Cyclops and Jean Grey. They have a kid together. That guy literally has the power of a god. You know what he does all the time? Fuck shit up.
Yeah, but like if you keep expanding that, and this goes into headcanon world building, right?
Yeah.
If you keep expanding outwards, you have the observers, you have literally like celestials,
The Watchers,
and
the Tribunal, right?
Yeah.
All those fucks.
DC,
what do they do? Nothing. That's me. I'm the Tribunal. I don't gotta do shit.
The one above all.
Mm-hmm.
So
which I thought was dumb, but.
So last time we talked about your headcanon, I had a story in my head that I always like just taper back on. It just like helps me keep things like, I guess, intact in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But the story is, and this is just based off of one of the games I play, and we've talked about this a couple times, so you might have to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, a person, and I've been trying to like write this out, or like the headcanon is there, and I kind of want to like make it reality in terms of like put it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But so the essential thing is like a guy, comes back from like he's been living a shitty life. He's still young, living a shitty life though, not doing well.
Struggling.
And he finds solace in video games. Not many, just like very niche video games.
Mm-hmm.
And he stumbles on this one that's like very like not well known. It's not like one of those like animes where it's like play this game and it'll change your life.
Yeah.
It was just one of the things he just stumbles upon.
Yeah.
Stumbles upon the game, gets like somewhat invested into it in the terms of like slowly it's just like this is like kind of like a gimmick game.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time doesn't realize that the game itself is affecting the world around him. So like in a sense, like the decisions he makes in a game doesn't make like an immediate impact to the world, but slowly makes that change. So as he does better in the game, the world around him is doing
it kind of reminds me of
equally
like
well.
The game from Ender's Game. You remember that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But like it's not like
we're just psychologically manipulating.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
It's more of like because, and this is where it becomes like easier to define the lines, is because one game's like about quote unquote war.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little like it's almost like Clash of Clans kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Something like that thing, like of that thing where you're just like taking out, but like what your account represents is literally your universe, your world.
Yeah.
But the main character doesn't know that yet. And slowly but surely, as he gets more invested in this game, time spent, creating this like connection, like, his world gets better or worse depending on how well he does.
Mm-hmm.
And as he goes through it, he knows that better. So, he's making more like his decision making becomes more like acute and concrete and he becomes almost like essentially like his skills become stronger. And as he builds his account, he himself builds, his whole world around him builds.
Right.
And it just keeps growing.
So like as his intellect grows, so does his ability.
Yeah. And obviously there's always like, there's going to be plots because if that's the premise, like there's no plot to it. But like, like, oh, there's like big events like this, server versus server. So now he has this alliance that he's in and it's taking on a whole nother like server, right?
Yeah.
So his universe, or you can expand it to a multiverse, right? Because the confines of it aren't known, even to this day as I write it out, like aren't known yet.
Yeah.
So it could be like, server versus server could be on the equivalent scale of like a multiverse versus another multiverse, or a universe versus a universe, or just a world versus another world.
Yeah.
Right, but we don't. The main character is like slowly trying to come to understandings on that, and the plot twist I put in there is like at the end of the day, or like at the end of it, or to a certain point of it, it becomes a thing of like, was that really the case? Or was it just like the game making him a better person in general? And it never affected like the world around him. He was just like, it just becomes a thing of like not paranoia but like almost like borderline schizo, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the plot twist. So like it leaves people on like the cliffhanger where it's like
what was the game ever really
like was his obsession to the game what made his world better? Mm-hmm. Or was that actually the case where him playing that game, the game's influence made it? It
reminds me of Bubblegum Lady, whatever. What was that movie? Cherry Bomb. It's about this woman and she gets thrown into like a prostitute or like a brothel. Remember? And basically she would have moments where she would go into another world with her crew and they would be fighting. I'm gonna find a movie. Basically, it reminds me of that because the way it works is she's like trapped in this place and she doesn't know whether or not she's trapped or not. Because she thinks it's a brothel, but it's also a mental hospital. And then when she's not in either of those things, she's fighting giant battles. Because like they had to get these materials to escape, and so one of the materials was a lighter, right, to set off to start a fire or like set off the fire alarms. So it cuts to a scene where it's her and her crew pulling off this heist to try to steal a lighter from one of the security guards. Mm-hmm. But instead of seeing it as like, oh, she's trying to steal a lighter from a security guard, it's actually her fighting a dragon. And she needs to cut the neck of the dragon to grab the stones from the dragon's throat that create a beautiful flame when you strike them together, right? And so that's what that reminds me of, because at the end of that one, you find out it was neither a mental hospital. It was actually, in fact, a mental hospital, but it wasn't a brothel or this weird fantasy type world. And the main character doesn't even make it out. They actually use all that to help one of the other people make it out. I'll find the movie for you. I'll say you should watch it.
Yeah.
You probably definitely will have watched it. I'm going to look it up. But continue.
I mean, that's pretty much the premise of it. Like the actual like pieces and like the storyline of building it is in the works right now. Because that's where it becomes, I guess, difficult. And this is where like world building headcanons come to fruition, right? We've talked about this where you said, or where you made that comment where people think like, like when you use the movie The Avatar as an example, it's like someone seeing into that world, like how much detail goes into like the interactions of the characters and like how like, oh, if humanity entered this world, this unknown world, and found these creatures, like how would they take their way of going about it to access their resources without, disturbing the environment. And there was like two ways of going about it. The military, just overpowered, like domination, or, like trying to befriend them and, exchange of resources kind of thing. And you know what I mean? Like the world building on that is to such a pedigree, and I'm only like in my, like I've worked on the macro, right? The big scale of things. Yeah. And now I'm like trying to like fine point it to the micro, or it is like now I could start making mini plots within this big world. Right. Now I have this big bubble created. Now I could start filling in small. It's like set theory, right? Like sets of sets right now. Mm-hmm. It's like plots of plots.
Yeah.
And as it keeps going, you can create more plots until you can get to, you have too many plots. Dial it back a little bit and go into, you know what I mean?
I mean, that's always the hardest part, right? Because like for my headcanon, whenever I work on it, it's always macro. Because to try to make it be micro, it's still macro. Because like the goal, the overall thing uh for my headcanon is nobody ever know whenever I'm involved, right? As the person I am in my headcanon, it's never a good thing to have me involved because because it's always about how the world is reacting to an event and how I'm reacting to an event because the world can react one way, right? And then, but because I have all this power, I can react however I want, and whatever I decide to react with affects everything. So whenever I'm involved, it's a bad thing. So that's where it brings it into the micro because I got to know how the characters that I'm not playing are reacting to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because effectively, right? If like, I can't. This is only because I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But like, imagine the war in Syria, not Syria, Ukraine right now, right? Imagine that's happening to your world. How would your character react? And by your character reacting that way, how does it affect everything else?
No, yeah, everything's always exactly.
Right.
Well, that's the whole beauty of the headcanon created is like I can take it any direction.
Right.
And be like, oh, because I won this battle against someone, like it can pan to them and be like, oh, now their day is ruined because they lost set on quote unquote one event that for whatever reason they're just as invested or like they're even more invested in that game like this. So when they lose a game that they were either expecting to win or really wanted to win, and they lose. That changes like their whole mood for X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
How much time? And then that it becomes like almost like a virus you're setting to someone in a sense, right?
Right.
In the game where it's like, oh, like now his mood is bad. He's changed the atmosphere around him, changing the atmosphere around the other people who don't know why he's upset. And it just keeps going like that. Or like, oh, someone won. We can keep going that direction.
Right.
Somehow it comes back to me, and it's almost like a butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
No,
that's actually a really interesting thing about it. Because like it brings you into like the spiral, right? Because like you win, right? Or at least the character of your headcanon wins, right? And his world is better and things are changing. The guy he beat lost, and so that world gets worse. And so the world he's affecting, has its own problems that it has to deal with, and they will deal with it in their own way. So it's really about like how do you explain that or like show that without giving away too much of like the overall mechanics of this world.
Yeah, exactly.
Because in your mind, right, that's what makes it hard to put it down on paper. Because in your mind, you see it all. It's all in front of you, right? You know what's happening, but you can't just write it down like that.
No, exactly. Well, that's the hard part is because, and again, I'm taking a lot of influence in the game I play. Mm-hmm. So like I understand literally the numbers that go into making me win certain battles, lose certain battles, expecting outcomes of certain things, right? Like I can expect outcomes based on looking at numbers straight up.
Yeah.
Now the performance end of things, like that's where it becomes, it's sports, right? Where it's like, oh, on paper, the Lakers with LeBron James and Russell Westbrook look like they should win, but chemistry's not there. They don't have a good game plan. Their coaching is terrible, so they're losing because of that. Right. As much as it says on paper that they should be like one of the most stacked teams, the Brooklyn Nets should be one of the most stacked teams. They lose because of reasons beyond numbers. Right.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like, oh, like he just wasn't feeling well that day, or like I said, just like they didn't have the other team just had a better game plan that countered theirs, whatever case may be.
Yeah.
So like having to, because no one wants to read it. No one wants to read or watch something just numbers.
That just breaks down.
I'm literally just explaining how to play a game at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
No one wants that. They want to read a story and get like enthralled in it.
They want to get behind a character so bad that when that character does lose, you're like, fucking bullshit.
Like I wonder if that's how like some stories are written, right? Because like for me, I can't just be like, oh, because I had better skills and I had better heroes than them. Right. That's why I won. Like like that's that again. It goes into just explaining the game. It has to be something more of like, again, it's like either the action or like the emotion or the pouring into it kind of thing of like, oh, he's just trying a lot harder. Like his mind is clearer and his characters are more developed.
Right.
And I'm gonna show that through action instead of through just like description.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
'cause
he's
you
a
got-
level 157 and his opponent is a level 80. Of course he's gonna win. Like, yeah, I mean like that and like again like you could take influence out of SAO and they've done that, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like you can't kill me because I am like 20, 30, 40 levels higher than you.
Right.
You guys don't do enough damage. My regeneration is higher than your damage.
But like
output.
but the thing about SAO though that still made it really interesting to watch was because even though that was like they lived in a world where the mechanics were set, right? And it's like do this to get this, right? People built their characters differently, and so sometimes you would find that one that's like, oh, super powerful because I put all these points into this and all these points into that. And then you get Kirito out here that's like, no, I knew you could do that. I knew you could do that. That's why my regen speed is actually up compared to how many hit points I actually have.
Yeah.
Because you're doing this much hit points, but I'm regenerating this much hit points, so you're not hurting me.
So it's and it becomes a beauty because it has a micro into it. Like here's the micro of how like if this world was real, this is the micro. Yeah. This is the things people really don't want to know about too much, but like we're gonna slip it in because some people are kind of interested and curious about it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that niche group that's like, I wonder how they're like making this RPG MMO RPG game work.
Yeah.
Well, here's a little snippet. I'm not gonna give you all the details because we would lose the rest of our watch base. Yeah. So here's to the people who like are into the micro.
Right. I want to understand. I mean, and that's my general thing when it comes to like writing or like building headcanons is when it comes to plot holes, my micros are there to patch them up. Mm-hmm. So like when I get into real in-depth detail when I'm going through a headcanon, it's always about, okay, so like why does my character have the power of a god? Where do you even get this power from? Or like why did they choose him out of all people to do it? And then that brings you into the micro that they chose him because out of everybody on earth, his mentality was the only one that was like, if you gave him great power, his first response would be not to use it entirely. Yeah. It would be to build the structures to support great power around him. So that way when he does make a mistake because he's not a god, he doesn't have to worry about it, but it builds the story further. Yeah. Because that's why like you're in the story, right? Because like if my character goes, I don't like how Russia's fucking with Ukraine, and I fly down to Moscow and I stand in front of whatever building the president of Russia stands in, and I go, I want to talk to Putin, right? And shit hits the wall. You're there to basically be like, hello, Mr. President. Yeah, I'm here on behalf of Konto over there because he's not acting the way he. That's the character's name. Why you got shit on the character's name? You don't even have.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that right. No, I haven't thrown a name out there yet.
But yeah, dude, I'm here on behalf of Konto. You need to know he's doing this, and here's why, right? Because otherwise, it's just a random thing my character is doing because I felt like writing it in.
No, right. Well, and that's the thing, though, too. In headcanons, it's hard because you know why.
Yeah,
right. Like for me, I'm like, as I'm creating my story in my head, I know why these are happening. But if I put it out to you, you have no idea. Right. People who would be reading it would have no idea. So I need to find that gap where I'm not losing people in the explanation of things, but at the same time, they get the clear picture.
Can I ask you a random, like, off-topic question real quick? If I did go to college for like English and writing, do you think this would be easier? Do you think like I would understand, or do you think I'd still be asking myself the same questions like we are now, right? Because like when you write a story, right, you always got those people. I always try to like build ideas around like take the person who is the best of the best, right, and look at how he got there and where you are at now, and with your idea, how does it compare to like what idea he would have at that time? So you think if I would have gone to English as a major, I'd be able to write a book? This is just a random thought.
No,
you don't.
I don't think it's not that I don't think you can or cannot. But I'm just saying I know people who haven't gone to college, right, and they have bestsellers, right. So for whatever reason, people want to read their book, whether it's like, oh, here's the secret to my success, right, or this is how I got to where I'm going to. Yeah. Or I'm not asking because I'm like, oh well, maybe I'm not as good as somebody who went to college. I'm asking because
whether or not you went to college or you know a lot about it or not, your idea could still be the next best idea.
It's less educational and it's more
Creative
drive and passion.
Yeah.
How much do you really want to portray your story? Enough to want to write it? Then start writing it, and you'll become a better writer by writing.
Right. But
you
still have the same questions where it's like,
100%. I mean, again, this is where headcanons and world building comes from asking questions and finding answers to those questions that'll suit your world, right? Like for me, I'm trying to literally take a game and turn it into a story and portray it in such that I enjoy, right? So like the way the game plays the way I literally see this game play is there's 3 factions. There's tanks, there's boats, and there's planes. And it's almost like Rochambeau. Now, in terms of like advantage, right? You've seen games like that where fire has advantage over grass. Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, but it's not as like obvious. I mean, I guess it's similar to Pokemon in that sense, because like if you have like an OP grass Pokemon taking on like a really underdeveloped fire Pokemon, the grass Pokemon's probably gonna win.
Yeah.
Its moves aren't going to be as effective, but because of the power scale, it's just going to blow you out of the water just from sheer force.
Yeah, but you don't really got to worry about that though, because like in terms of story building, in those scenarios, that's not really anything. I mean, so in those scenarios, at least from what I've seen in the past, when you find that somebody who's like, oh, I'm like, but like how it goes in stories where it's all like, oh, I'm the villain and I'm here to destroy the world, and so you have the complete opposite of that villain come after the villain, and they're like, well, I'm the holy warrior, and because I have the power blessed by the sun, I can kick your ass. And then the villain literally wipes shop and goes, who the fuck were you even to do that to me?
Yeah.
Right? That's important, because you can use that and basically build stories around that. Because now it's like, now you don't have to worry about, oh, this whole fight that decides everything. It's just a fight. And it shows how powerful your character is. And then you look at it from the person he just beats perspective, and you're like, I'm not gonna beat you anymore because I'm not here to beat you. I'm here to get and it provides you some insight, basically.
No, yeah, exactly.
You have those scenarios where you have a weak person, and it does just come down to the numbers, because then it gives you a moment to look into the mentality.
Well, that comes again. Then you could see that in many shows that do that, where there are advantage, like a lot of animes or a lot of shows based upon magic. There's always an advantage. Oh, he's using water magic.
Right.
Oh, this person's using lightning. Based on my knowledge, I can use his water magic against him because of the conductivity of water and electricity.
Right.
So with that being said, and then so for Black Clover.
Yeah.
Right. You have the guy who literally is a mercury magic user. He uses literal mercury.
Yeah.
Right. And he has a disadvantage to fire because fire is hot, and mercury has a low boiling or melting point. Right. It's liquid at room temperature.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have a disadvantage to fire, but at the same time, like they're both very powerful. So like, even though there is a disadvantage, it's still somewhat comparable.
Right.
And then for me, like the way I want to because you want to portray those kind of aspects to get people to understand. Oh, there's advantages to. Oh, that's why this is a tougher fight, because he's at a disadvantage based on his magic ability. Or, oh, this guy is a sniper, and snipers are not like good against just mid-range archers.
Yeah.
Or close combat fighters are terrible against snipers though.
Right. Yeah. Right. Unless they get up close, and then there's all that.
But you want to portray that through a good telling, instead of just, like I said, explaining that out.
Exactly.
So before I tell you this story, well, I want to preface this as, melee people are terrible against mid-range shooters. Mid-range shooters are terrible against snipers, and snipers are terrible against mid-range.
Yeah, but they
instead
always
of saying
explain
that, you
at
display
like the beginning. Well, they do it. Some people just do that whole thing at the beginning where they're like, "This is the society we live in, and this is how it's broken down." So, like for your headcanon, right? You could be like, "This is the game we live in. This is how it's broken down, basically, right? From a statistical standpoint, this is what we know." And then you go into the story telling about how basically all those statistics you talked about at the beginning don't matter when compared to genuine intellect and skill,
right,
when playing the game,
right. And that's what it's going to boil down to, because I mean, at the beginning, that's where like you. Again, this is if I was to write it out, like it would have to display all those points in an interesting way where people understand it. So when you get to, and it's the same thing in a lot of shows where they're like, obviously like this fire Pokemon's gonna destroy that grass Pokemon, and then as they get to a higher level, it becomes less obvious
Yeah.
because it's just now based on skill and, like you said, like intellect.
Yeah.
And maybe not in Pokemon, maybe not in like the video game of Pokemon, since it's so like linear in that sense, but in the terms of like you see like main like I guess like shonens where the hero gets stronger and stronger and they all reach that level where it's like, okay, like he's just he just outclasses everybody because he's just far more like intelligent.
Yeah,
he's not some, and don't get me wrong, some heroes are like just OP as fuck,
right.
But in those ones where it's close battles all the time, it's like, oh, he just outwitted his opponent each time.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing of like he just had better skill set or he was much stronger. He just, he just sharpened his strengths to where he can, and he protected and honed his weaknesses at the same time, to the point where it's hard to break that defense.
I
got a pretty solid offense.
It reminds me of so have you been keeping up with Mashal?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you remember the last fight he did with the water guy, and he's all like, "Do you see how powerful I am? I have such level of strength, and like it's why I'm the only one willing or capable of wielding the wand that holds the god Poseidon." And then Mashal just goes, "Oh, so your whole body's water? Idea." And he grabs a bucket.
Yeah, it just starts.
He starts pouring it out. He's just like, scoop water, throw it off the cliff. Scoop water, throw it off the cliff.
Yeah, just kept getting rid of the water.
There's a range to his magic. It has to be basically within this room, so I just get the water out.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right. And then he beats him, right? Not because, because he's actually a lot stronger. But if you look at Mashal, it's a lot about him figuring out how to get around his opponent, because until he can actually clock a good strike against his opponents don't go down. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, and I love that movie did too, right? Where he was like punch squared. So he was like 2.
Yeah.
1,600 or whatever.
There's 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128.
All right, what's 32 squared? Vanille, what's 32 squared? Yeah, 32 squared.
You do the opposite, 2 to the 32nd power.
2.
Right, because you're just doing 2. You're just doubling it every time. So 256.
You have a calculator on your phone. Bitch, if I can't do it off the top of my head.
1024, 2048.
Yeah, there are some people. Do you see one in this room?
4096, 8192.
All those things.
Yeah.
But 1024, yeah. But that's how many punches you release. But not the moment's gone. But basically, yeah, I hear you get what I'm saying. It's when you're trying to build a story, you gotta know when certain moments are built for explaining micros and certain moments are just for keeping true to the macro. And that but writing that down is very hard to understand, right? Because you will know both. You know both sides. You know why something the micro side.
Well, if you know a story, if you have a headcanon, you have to know every angle of that. It's in your head, right?
Yeah.
You should be able to see every point of view of that.
Right.
So like for me, like and this is how my head imagines it, but I see it as the game plays, right? So like it's a 3x3 grid. You set like your troops that you want, whatever it is, right? And you can organize it however you want, put the heroes you want, and like I'll know, oh, I'm a water, or like I have boats.
Yeah.
They're good against tanks.
Yeah.
So, I see this person is a tank player. I'm going to go after them. Anyone who's a plains player usually want to go after them because they're probably going to beat me because of the advantage that they have, right?
Yeah.
So I'll think that. But I could scale it back and go, okay, instead of making it like this miniature war, I could be like, okay, let's divide that into 3 people, right? The heroes that I chose. And now it's just a 3-on-3 battle in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's scale it back, and now it's just the account versus like the character versus character.
Yeah.
Right. And then I can use whatever skills I want. Well, okay, man, I just unlocked, or I just got access to a new skill, or it leveled up. Cool. Let's take advantage of that, and now I should be able to take out more people, or like now this fight should heavily favor me.
You leveled up, right?
Exactly. So that's how, and and then I could take it back again, right, and go, okay, now it's to like a realistic macro where it's like, oh, it's just me on touching my phone,
Yeah.
playing on my phone, and then I could take it back one more time, and go, okay, like I've gotten here because of the work I put in.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Gurren Lagann did that,
Yeah.
right, where it was like, okay, like we're in this hole, let's get out of this hole, let's keep drilling out.
Right.
Okay, we drilled out. And now we got
bigger,
monsters.
bigger,
Let's drill through the
bigger.
monsters.
Right.
Okay, now we're on planetary destruction. Let's drill through that.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're fighting literally the thing that is stopping you from trying to progress in life. Okay, let's drill through that too.
Right. Let's go ahead. Like you're literally the size of a universal or
this
a galactic being.
Yeah,
right
this
now.
is a universal battle right now. The battle between entities of a universe.
Right.
So let's go to that scale. You know what I mean? Like I could keep doing that.
Yeah, you could. I mean, and there's something beautiful about that. You know what I mean? Like that's why shonen mangas are always so famous, right? It's because when you look at because it's like look at One Piece, right? Start off, he's struggling with sea kings, right? Those giant fish that are in the sea, he struggled with them. Now he sees one, clocks that bitch, they eat it, right?
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, well now you're dealing with the warlords, right? And he fought the warlords. The warlords were pretty badass. Beat what 1, 2, 3 of them already.
Yeah,
and then the fourth one, like.
So yeah, you look at the scale of One Piece, and it goes, okay, he's fighting some other devil, like he's fighting regular people, kicks their ass, right? It's just a grotesque human being with an axe on his hand.
Yeah.
Beat him. All right, cool. What's
Done.
next? Well, now you're fighting someone who has a devil fruit. Oh, okay. Well, that's a little more trickier, but guess what? Still beat them. Okay.
Yeah.
Next skill. Now you're defeating someone with a title.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Warlord title.
Boom.
All right, got him.
Move on. Yep.
Now you're gonna realize that there's a scale in the warlords, right? Like, oh, you just defeated one warlord, and as you realize, there's a bunch of other warlords, and they're not power scaled the same.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that this warlord is stronger than this one by a significant amount.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now you have to take them on.
Yeah.
Now you get to the point where you're fighting the government. And now you're understanding the power of the government and their like hierarchy of power scale.
Yeah.
And now it becomes a thing of like, I mean, if you followed the One Piece, like it just keeps going in that direction where you like realize
to where they're now at the point of fighting the emperors of the sea and what they've already taken down. They're just missing Blackbeard and what's the new one? Brownbeard is the fourth one now.
It's Shanks.
Oh, you're right, Shanks. My bad. I forgot
Kaido.
about Shanks. Shanks,
Big
Kaido,
Mom.
Big Mom, Blackbeard.
Blackbeard and Luffy.
Luffy's not a warlord yet.
He's the emperor. Yeah, they claimed him the 5th emperor of the sea.
Well, yeah, technically, but you know what I mean. Like
to the other emperors.
To the other emperors,
No.
they don't count him as a warlord.
But
to
did they
everybody
even count?
else, they're
But
all
who?
like
But
a
where
strong.
does the title of warlord come, or like emperor of the sea come from?
I felt like
Who gives the title of Yonko?
I felt like that was explained. Like when Blackbeard took the title of Yonko, it was because he killed Whitebeard. You know what I mean? He killed Whitebeard because the lava guy fought Whitebeard.
But did
lava
he?
guy
But
lost.
like, it wasn't even him that killed him. Like, yeah, he put the final bullet in him, right? But like, if you watch that Marineford battle,
yeah, I know.
he took a punch. He literally had his insides lava'd out.
Yeah.
He took a light laser to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
He took a sword to the chest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Homeboy fucking he didn't go down like a bitch.
Maybe in the sense that he took his little devil fruit. But I'm pretty sure the government decides whether you're a Yonko or not. No.
No, the government. I felt like the government didn't decide. Because here's what I realized. Right, it was the Yonko title comes from the threat. I think you're right, actually.
Right, the threat to the world government.
Threat to the world government. You're right, but it's bigger than that. You know what I mean?
Oh no, for sure.
Like, if you look at Whitebeard, Shanks, Big Mom, and Kaido, they're all rulers of their own country. Right? Shanks is a celestial dragon, right?
That's not confirmed.
That's not confirmed, but he showed up. And where did he sit? He showed up to Marion, wherever the fucking thing is called, and he sat in that chair that no one's allowed to sit in because he can't. That's what I'm saying. He's like, you have that, right? They're all in charge of their own little thing. They all have their own political influence on a grand scale.
Well, yeah, again,
not like Don Flamingo, where it's all like, oh, I do business with a lot of big money people. Like these motherfuckers, they're not worried about it. They just show up and they're like, I need this in the news today.
But again, you gotta, and that comes back to the headcanons thing, right? And like the macro, micro.
Exactly.
Right. So like,
On one end, you have like people like Blackleg over there, right? Or Redleg. You remember Redleg? You don't remember Redleg?
You gotta give me his name besides his nickname.
That was the guy who raised Sanji, Redleg.
Zaref? Zaref?
Zaref? Is that his name?
The chef.
Yeah, the chef. His name was Zaref? You remember that?
So.
It was so long ago. Yeah, you look at Redleg, right? Redleg's on the micro scale, right?
Zeph? Let me see.
They called him Zeph. You're right. But like Redleg's on the micro scale in the sense of like he was really only there, or the macro scale, I would say, because he's really only there because he's meant to be like Sanji's mentor. And
it is Zeph, not Zaref. Zeph.
But he's on him. Is Zeph? Answer me then. Is Zeph a macro or micro? Because he was only there really as Sanji's motivation and mentor, and they don't really talk about him, but he's still a big influencing part of who Sanji is. Or is he a micro because they genuinely like, here's why he is the way he is, and boom, moving on.
I mean, that's not how you're supposed to look at it, right? Because he could be both. The way you look at it though is in the terms of like this. It's more like this, right? So like when Luffy fought Buggy, it wasn't for any territory, it was just a fight. Same with Alvida, same with like Smoker, it starts getting, you scale up because now he's taking on Crocodile, who has his own little like Baroque works, like he has his own little gang squad of like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You scale up now. You have to scale up. Then he goes on to Skypiea, scale up again, because now he's taking on this guy who considers himself a god, and literally is creating a terrible environment for the Sky people. All right, and then you go next. Okay, what's after that? I forgot, but you know what I mean. Now it's okay. Now I got to save Robin, right? I'm gonna skip a few parts. There's so many CP9. Fucking fillers, but yeah. Then you go to CP9, and you go, okay, now he's collecting a new crewmate because he has to scale up again,
right?
Because his ship is not complete. So it's like a different kind of thing. It's like a set. It's like a set of sets of sets, right? Where you have this one bubble where he's still collecting crewmates to have his perfect crew that can help him to become the king of the pirates. Okay, I need a navigator. I need a right hand man. I need a chef. I need a doctor. I need a shipwright. I need archaeologist.
Right.
I need Usopp for whatever reason.
Usopp's there because he's a homie. That's what he's there.
I need Brook for the musical entertainment, keeps it fun and interesting. You know.
Need Zoro as my first mate, the only one who always has his back.
Yeah, I need Jinbe because he's literally the
he steers the ship.
Yeah, he steers it.
Helmsman.
Yes, thank you. So like each person has like their respective role, and as he goes on into the, he doesn't pick up more than he needs. If you realize that.
Well, I mean,
right?
He would, right? Because he would have. He's always trying to get people to join his crew, and he technically does have a huge crew, right?
He's a grand fleet, but they're not in his crew. There's just like
a bunch of people he met up with.
Right, they drank sake together, and he went, if you ever need help, let me know.
Right.
And they went, okay, right back at you. We're there in a heartbeat. Like, just give me the call, be there.
Right. I think
please make me relevant again. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty much all they're doing in that. But in the grand scheme of things, right? There's that small circle where he's still trying to build people up into his team.
Yeah.
To his crew that makes him king of the pirates worthy, right?
Yeah.
And then you have in the circle of like dominance of territory, right? Like Crocodile had taken over like that sand kingdom. I forget what Alabasta, thank you. Right? He liberates them. All right, cool. He didn't take it over. He's not like, okay, but I'm in charge now. He just went, all right, cool. I got rid of your parasites.
Yeah,
like,
but
cool, I'm out.
That's what I'm saying. Like the overall goal of liberation is a macro because that's the overall goal. But then you find out poneglyphs and hidden secrets and why Crocodile's even in fucking Alabasta out of all the countries he could have tried to take over, right? Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like when you go into writing a headcanon, that's what you gotta. My problem is understanding the fine line between that, right? Because the macro is he's here to liberate, and the micro is
but you have to realize
everybody's here because of this.
They build to each other. If you haven't noticed, like the macro could scale to micro, and micro can scale to macro. Right. You get subtle hints on the poneglyphs in Alabasta.
Yeah.
Right. And Robin almost dies, and then she joins the crew of her own volition, and it becomes a thing of like, oh, she's the only person that can read poneglyphs. That's a very micro detail.
That is very micro
But as you
detail.
see now, it's so macro now because poneglyphs are everywhere in the story now.
Yeah.
You know,
Everybody has either prints of a poneglyph, or they're trying to find a poneglyph, or they
Joy
have
Boy.
a fake. Yeah,
Joy Boy. Very micro when it started off. And now it's
Very
getting
micro.
to such a macro level.
I
Right?
still call that micro because
it's-
all
it's
he's gonna do
scaling.
is show up and kick Kaido's ass.
I know, but how much scaling does it have in terms of influence,
That
right?
is
It's been
true,
referenced
yeah.
so much more
That is
now
true.
than it has back in the like when it was first mentioned.
I see what you're saying.
People would make so many theories on it because it was so micro,
Mhm.
right? You're taking a magnifying glass to this thing to like a bacteria, a microscope to a bacteria, and you're just like, okay, it looks like a blob.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. But if we go further into it, it's probably more. And you know, if we have that technology, it's going to happen. But same thing with storytelling. As the story goes further into it, the thing becomes a little clearer. It's not much a blob now. It has appendages now. We notice it has appendages.
Yeah.
Okay, give it more time. Oh, now it has fingers and toes. Okay, well, we're not looking at bacteria anymore. It's just a giant looking through a magnifying glass to see another tiny human at this point.
You're right.
Right?
Okay.
It's at that level. And
Yeah.
that's how it goes. And you can do it backwards. Right?
Mhm.
Like, what's a good idea? Like, scaling big and going smaller, right? Well, like,
I don't know.
well, a lot of stories start that way.
Oh,
It's
no,
like a Big
no,
Bang thing, right?
no,
Where
you're
you,
right.
it's here, it goes large, it goes tiny, large expansion, and it's kind of like simmers back down to
No,
like
you,
normalcy.
a good example of that would be Hazard Punk's whole storyline, right? They were all like, you got to capture the scientist that's making the artificial devil fruit because he's experimenting on children and it's just all around wrong and he's trying to kill a bunch of people, so we got to kick his ass. And then that's a whole arc, right? That's
Or
a
like,
macro.
yeah, or like the
And
smile
then-
fruits in and of themselves, right?
And then it's
So,
just,
like-
now it's just a tiny little thing they reference when they're dealing with
Right,
Kaido.
the smile fruits became such a big plot point.
Mhm.
Reference Big Mom a little bit, right? Not much because it was really Doflamingo and Kaido's thing, right? And it was such a big plot point at the time of Punk Hazard. But as we get closer and closer to Wano,
Mhm.
right, it's become less relevant.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the reason why he has a devil fruit army is just because of this thing now.
Because he kept making smile fruits. Right?
Yeah.
And then with Big Mom, it was just because she wanted fellow giants to live amongst her.
And guess what? It at one point it could probably come back to like a macro scale again, or like it could come back to macro and be like, oh, now we're going back to Vegapunk.
Where is that guy right now?
I don't know.
Yeah, where is Vegapunk? Where did he go? Oh, Vegapunk is a whole different guy. I'm thinking of,
You're thinking of Caesar Clown.
Yeah, where is
But
Caesar?
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, if we want, they could take it back in that direction and bring it back to a micro level,
Mhm.
or to another micro like kind of explosion or wavelength. You know, it's like a wavelength of things, right? It's like macro to a micro to a macro to a micro, right? I think that's like the fundamental like pattern. Like you need a pattern to things in a sense, but that's less
I guess-
predictable.
I
That's
guess
less
That's
predictable.
the whole thing with like storytelling is like you can't just basically be like, this is the grand scheme. I mean, because we know the grand scheme is it becomes Pirate King, right? But like you can't just go from point A to there, right?
But that's what
has
makes a
to
good
go.
story, you know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
if you literally went, here's Luffy. He's a kid. He grew up, and guess what? He fought. And it's like if we wrote it as a children's storybook right now, it'd be like page 1. This is Luffy as a kid.
Yeah.
Oh wow, he got a hat. Oh look he's grown up now and he's off to his first adventure.
Right.
Look at all these adventures he went on. And guess what? He finally defeated, and then I'll list off the people he defeated that were most important in his trail into his path of Pirate King.
Yeah.
And he found the One Piece. The end. That's a terrible story. You know, to a child
Yeah.
who's like 5, it's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Because it has all the points that you need for it to be a complete story.
Right. But we're not doing that.
But no,
We're trying to
they
write
go, okay,
real story.
yeah.
Real. But I mean, like, so like, it's always hard because like you, me, Cassie. I'm not sure about Vanille, but probably Charles, right? We've all tried writing at one point, but it's so now. My next question is like, so now that we understand what micros and macros are and how they translate into each other, what do you put down on that first page to get things started?
Nothing yet.
No, but
I don't even work on the page.
You don't even work on the page.
I haven't worked on the page yet. So what I do for what I've been doing is character development, settings, and plot circles. right? So it's almost like if I took an index card and I just put, it's like I want to create a timeline first in my head. So like first, I don't need arcs. I don't need arcs yet because that's too for me. That's too micro at this point.
It's too micro.
Like I'm at such a macro scale of things. I need to bring it to a micro level first. So first, I need to develop characters. It doesn't have to be all of them just yet. Just enough to get some story going though. So I need to do the main character. I need to do like either some friends along the way, not all of them, but like could be like a couple to get it going, right? To get the ball rolling.
Right.
And then I need like some form of adverse, what's the word I'm looking for? Like trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Trials and tribulations.
Right. Something that shows that there's some form of growth in the story.
Yeah.
Whether it's a downward growth or an upward growth. It needs to have some form of movement, right? If it's stagnant, there's no story worth telling.
I mean, have you seen One Punch Man?
But again, they take out of that stagnation, they take the most exciting moments of what's happening through that guy's life.
No, I know.
You know.
I'm just throwing it there because like, just sometimes I like to throw dumbass statements out there. Make you think. But so okay, so then after you get the micros, and then you're doing the stories and plot holes.
So for me, it goes. I need to find my theme, right?
Circles.
So I have my theme and like my general idea of what I want my story to be. My characters in the works of development, and at the same time, I'm starting to fit stories that can, or like mini stories that can work into this character's personality, and pitting it against each other.
Yeah.
What would happen on the outcome of him going through this trial? Oh, well, he would go through a downfall. Okay, well, is there anything that could pick him up, or is it going to be something that he has to live for and has to like keep like I forget what it's called. I'm not gonna even try and reference it. But in that sense where it's like, oh, this thing I have to live with now, and so that's my redemption arc. And this story will be a continual redemption arc, right?
Yeah.
So like to him it's always going down, or like he's just preventing more downwardness.
Yeah.
But to the viewers, maybe it's like an upwardness that he hasn't realized.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So like if I had a graph and it was multicolored, right? One color representing how the character saw it, it would be like preventing anything going down.
Yeah.
Right. But as
like a flat line.
But here's the audience's graph would be like they would follow that same trend, and then they'd get to a point where he's doing so much more good.
Yeah.
Then he probably has realized that their perception of him is going up.
That makes sense.
Right. As his is very like stagnant in mindset, theirs is going up in terms of like this is a person who is trying to do good and doesn't realize it because he's still trying to, in his head, right a wrong that he thinks has been like terrible kind of thing, right?
Yeah. All right. So re-explain that to me because I'm very dumb and I barely understood any of that. So what I understand is explain it.
So okay, so I'll get into more detail into mine.
Uh-huh.
So like the character is going like, and this is how it's going to be addressed too. Is like it'll be kind of like if you noticed in One Piece they'll like go into like their current story and then it'll be a backstory,
right?
To get more context. It'll be something like that, right. Where you realize like the character went through some shit, hasn't been discussed, but realize like
Sanji's whole family deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't learn about the Vinsmokes until Whole Cake.
You don't even really, and what's funny too is like you don't really even question where Sanji's family is.
Yeah.
You're always like, there's Zeph, and that's where he was.
Well, a lot of people did because they did like, well, I guess not, because there was like a lot of like Nico Robin and Frankie did. So I guess it doesn't really count. But you're going like, Roronoa, what's Sanji's last name?
Right. Yeah.
So people have the questions to prompt, but at the same time, there's not enough context for you to be like, for there to be a clear like, this is Sanji's backstory.
Right.
You can't just throw a random backstory in just because.
Right.
That's why there's not like a huge one on Zoro outside of the very beginning of his where he lost his friend. Karina? I have no
idea. So I was basically asking, you were explaining to me about
going about the process of.
No, you were re-explaining to me what you mean by like plot circles and like because we talked about micros and macros and then we're coming back into what you're still doing before you finally get that first page
written out.
Yeah. So like, and then my thing is, I was confused about, you were talking about plot circles and how they all tie in together, right? You're talking about Luffy, about how, that if you're writing One Piece for 5-year-olds, it'd be a very linear thing of grow up, gets the hat, fights, becomes Pirate King, cool. But we're adults, so when it comes to a story that captivates us, there's more to it. So what is like a plot circle that you'd be writing for the beginning of a headcanon, right? So like my headcanons are always like they're very simple plot circles. Government fucks me over, but I'm God. So fuck you. Right? Like that's all that is for me. So walk me through one of yours.
Well, that one's too like for me. That's just too obvious of a plot circle for
Exactly.
my story. So it has to be as you want your character to be as we see in One Piece as Luffy starts to get like developed in terms of like power and like sophistication, thought process.
He's
and
still
theory.
a very simple character at the end of the day, though.
He is,
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
To his own degree.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, you have to realize like what we don't know, or what you should know, is that like he didn't develop his like punches just because he had rubber. Like it took training and effort, right?
Yeah.
So like there's some sophistication of Luffy we don't understand, or that like goes over a lot of people's heads because of his simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
So same thing with the story. There's like gonna be an overarching like global long-term like plot, just like in One Piece in that sense, where it's like the plot is to be king of the pirates.
Mm-hmm.
So you know where the end goal is going,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just a matter of walking that path.
Yeah.
Right. And for mine, it would be less clear of the end goal, but the morals or like the moral compass is there. So it's instead of it being like a goal oriented story, it's a like pit this against your moral. Like what you did what we did yesterday or last episode.
Right, where it's all like I give you an impossible scenario, even though your mind
You make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's you go with logic or morals, right? And then
you will realize that as that keeps going on, the scale of the plot gets bigger and bigger and encapsulate more and more people and encapsulates, and it almost becomes a grand thing towards your direction of like the government. Yours is very vengeful.
Yeah,
the government fucked me, but it's like there's corruption.
Well, it's not always the government, but it's always somebody's like they don't understand that like my goal here as for my character is to help, right? I'm given all this power and I'm trying and I was unsure that I can use it to its best ability because of how I am as a person. So instead of just winging it, I gather my crew, right? Or at least my initial crew, right? With like I got my owners and I have my horsemen. And then together we work towards the overall scheme. But but nobody knows it's us yet, right? We're still doing because mine is still classic superhero type shit, whereas like nobody knows your secret identity, nobody knows who you are when you're not flying around saving the world. You are just this guy, and when that happens and the world still chooses to fuck you over because they don't know who you are, then it becomes like a whole then that's where the story really usually kicks off for me, because it's like you tried your best and the world still didn't want to thank you for it. So now you get to do whatever you want. So but it's still like that, and now I'm getting what you're saying, because initially, right, you start with this plot of like, you're just trying to help the world. In the world, you're trying to be the best person you could be given the power that you have. Cool. And then you get angry and you destroy some things, and now you see that your actions actually don't just affect the people you save, it affects the whole world. I see what you're saying.
So mine goes small scale. Mm-hmm. Or you're right. It's more of a thing of like bettering myself, or like something very individualistic.
Yeah.
Very subjective.
Yeah. Very.
And you realize that you scale bigger. Right. It's like almost again Luffy, a great example. Right? Yeah. He's just like, I'm going to be a king of the pirates. It just means to be free.
Yep.
You are preventing that. I will stop you. And guess what? I didn't realize I just liberated a whole kingdom.
Right.
A couple times.
A few.
Right.
Several times.
So, or you really hurt my friend, I'm going to kick your ass. And he does. And guess what? The whole village is saved now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It becomes that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to be like the scale direction it goes, where it's like almost mindless, where it's like doesn't realize that he is helping more than he thinks he is. Next thing you know, he's like once that becomes reality, then it becomes a grand scale of like things. But the thought process is not to that grand scale.
Yeah.
Because that's not the winning ticket. You know what I mean? The winning ticket isn't to scale your mind to the problem. Right? It was like, if you look at it, Luffy's not like, okay, now I'm here to conquer countries and I'm here to conquer the world.
Right.
He just goes, if you're an enemy of mine,
Yeah.
that becomes that. We're fighting.
Yeah.
Hands come out. Catch him.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And if you're not,
then you won't get in my way.
Right. Then you shouldn't feel too bad about it. Then I won't feel too bad about kicking your ass.
Right.
You know what I mean? I love my thing. Mine just cut back to like the early anime when they were getting what's his bucket? Usopp. And the guy they had fight on Usopp's island. And I'm thinking about it. I was like, that was just to showcase the quick step maneuver that everybody knows in the because I'm thinking about it and I'm all like, you're looking at these motherfuckers, like even Buggy, right? When they met Buggy, he was like, I'm gonna conquer this island. Why? Because it's a major trading export, so I think I'm just gonna do it. And then Luffy kicks his ass, and then he's like, all right, man, fuck you, I'm coming after your ass.
Yeah.
And so it's just a fucking wild adventure for him to try to chase Luffy down. And then you get to Usopp's island, right? That dude, there's no grand scheme. He was like, I'm gonna play the long game. I'm gonna be this dude's butler. And in about 10 years, I'm gonna steal about 2 treasure chests worth of gold and be set. That's a bitch if I've ever heard one. He showed up and he's what was his whole move? He had gloves with swords on them, right? So his finger game was on point. He could have done anything. Yeah, strong finger game, sure. But other than that, he was like, you done it now. I'm about to lose my shit. You ain't ready. And poof. And everyone was like, where'd he go? And then he cut 2 people. And then Luffy went, oh, let me just, okay, I see him.
Yeah.
Just clap, done. And oh God, I don't know. My whole thing with story building is I want to know where that little thing came from. Like nobody asked what happened to that guy after he was done, right? Because I'm sure the world government came in and were like, oh, apparently, remember this dude? Yeah, it had this kind of a bounty on him. We couldn't find him for years. Luffy found him. Doesn't even get the money, high key, which is wrong. But there's just do they just add it to his bounty? Is that I feel like that's how it's been going. But like overall, when it comes to story building, it's like you said way at the beginning, because this whole thing is like a circle, but like not a regular circle, a freaky circle, if you get that reference. It's all about passion, and it's about where emotion is invoked in you as the writer and in somebody else as the reader. You know what I mean?
What do you want to portray as well?
Yeah, exactly.
What is it? Is it something you want people to see? Is it like an angle that you've seen that for some reason other people have either been ignorant to, or you know what I mean? Like, do you have an insight on something that your story portrays that may like captivate people in a positive manner?
Yeah.
Or does it open people's eyes to certain things, right? Like that's what you want in a story, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Some form of captivation and some form of telling that it's like, I don't mind if people have this discussion about this topic, but why did he do it, right? Because stories do that, right? Especially ongoing stories. They leave that lingering question of like, I wonder, and it gets you thinking, gets you to critical think.
Yeah.
No one wants a story that's like cut and dry.
Yeah.
Right, where you're like, oh, I don't have to wonder why he's doing that because it's completely explained.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
You want to go towards you want to build your way to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And then if it's wrong and you see the correct one, you go, I get that one.
Yeah.
Or I wonder what happens if they went in with this direction.
But my problem with that then becomes it gets too confusing, because I'm so confused in this current arc with One Piece.
Oh really?
Because I have no idea why I know Luffy's here because it's like, you're fucking with my friends. Let me kick your ass. And he has that deal with Law, right? To help beat Kaido. or no, he was only supposed to help defeat Don Flamingo, and then Law and them were like, oh, actually, I'm only an ass because I'm working with Kaido and I'm part Celestial Dragon or whatever. But like, my thing is, it's just like, but now there are too many characters, right? Because you got all the samurai, you have the 2 children of Odin, right, and then have all the other captains. X Drake is there for some reason. Whatever happened to, the other? Remember, there was that lady who could eat a bunch and could change her age, and then you had the giant angel dude. That whatever happened to those fucks?
Yeah, they're probably still in the canon somewhere.
Apu's here too. Apu's.
So yeah, I mean, I could break that down for you if you want me to a little bit.
We could break that down in another episode, like where we just go in on One Piece and why it's good and bad and stuff like that. But basically, I'm just saying, like, it's plot circles just eventually sometimes just get too big and you get confused. That's the thing that like turns me off about a lot of books. Is it's just like they took it too far, right? There are too many names for me to memorize now.
And that's the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why, like, yeah, like again, in each arc you'll learn more characters, but when it comes back to it, you're really just gonna stick to the main Straw Hat crew. Yeah. That's why the Grand Fleet didn't become part of his crew.
Yeah, can you imagine having to memorize all those fucking names?
Right. Like, even just the leaders of the other groups, right?
Yeah.
So in that scale, you just have to like really just bring it back down to the people. Oh, can we incorporate a 9th character? Yeah, we can. It's X and X and X and X.
Right. It's Jinbe.
Right. Exactly.
Why is Jinbe important? Because you've seen Jinbe throughout the story. You saw him in Fishman Island. You saw him on Whole Cake. And now you're seeing him here.
But this is how beautiful, and we'll end it on this note.
Yeah.
And this is like a tribute to like how well One Piece has been written and like how like good. How to, I mean, not how to get a good headcanon started, but like the goal or direction you want it to go in, right? Mm-hmm. So you know the main crew for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you know Luffy's brother, his father, his grandfather. You know Sanji has a family. You know Nami has a sister. You know the people that he helped. Oh, Vivi.
Brooke has that whale.
Brooke has Laboon, correct.
Yeah.
You know. Who, Chopper had the doctor. You don't have to remember the name correctly, but you know that he had that doctor.
He has that whole village.
Frankie had the shipwright Tom who built, you realize like, wow, there's like, why do I know all of this stuff? Because it's a good story. Yeah. And like, if you want to understand those characters you're watching, this is what you need to know. Yeah. Sanji had Zeph, right? Zoro has his dying... Or like his ever-wanting ability to be...
swords.
The 3 swords. No, that's true, right? Yeah. That's the uniqueness of him. And his wanting wish to become the world's greatest swordsman.
Yeah. Right. The king of the demon king, as he so puts it.
Yeah. Right. And then you find out that he would be willing to put that aside to help Luffy become king of the pirates. Right. You start to keep more of this information intact when you're reading along. Because it's useful and it helps to keep your story that you have of this story that you're reading on track. Right. If it wasn't that great, you would just be like, I don't need to know about all 9 of these characters.
Right. Like, I don't need to know why or how because I'm not interested. I want to see the fight and want to move on. You're right. And that's kind of how I feel about One Punch Man right now because I'm like watching this and I'm just like, I don't care about Flashy Flash. Flashy Flash ain't doing shit.
Right.
But Metal Bat, though, Metal Bat's a cool guy.
Yeah, and then you resonate towards the characters that you enjoy the most of, and you don't resonate with the ones you don't, right? Like you just put.
Yep. But on that note, we'll get back to this another day.
Yeah.
It's your boy Waffles.
And your boy Maui.
And this is Couch Surfin'. Peace.